Hello, everyone. Welcome to Transform Now. I'm Brad Hairston.
And I'm Michael Marchuk.
And this is the weekly pulse check. We're taking a look at what's happened in the world of automation and AI. Michael, I've got 5 articles for you today. You ready to dive right in?
Let's get right to it.
All right. Here we go. So the first one is from TechCrunch. And the title of the article is XAI reportedly lays off 500 workers from their data annotation team. So, Michael, this happened last Friday, where they scaled back their general AI team, if you want to call it that. And there was some internal messaging around the company about the layoff that leaked out, and TechCrunch and many others have reported on this. But the internal note seemed to imply that there was an immediate strategic pivot. So why don't you expand on this, Michael?
Sure. So as you mentioned, they had a layoff. It was about a third of their data annotation team. And these teams are the ones who help the models learn. So they had their team was made up of about 1,500 people. So this affected about 500 folks. Again, you talk about abruptness and the way that someone is terminated. According to the quote here, is as part of the shift in focus, we will no longer need most generalist AI tutor positions, and your employment with XAI will conclude. So I thought that was a very succinct way of saying that you are fired.
Probably wrote that message, I'm assuming.
Very likely, very likely. But what was interesting is that the strategic pivot was away from generalist tutors and a much, much larger ramp up in specialists. So folks that are working, they're hiring across domains like STEM, finance, medicine, safety, et cetera, to really get more domain expertise built into their model, which I think is an interesting pivot for them rather than staying, generalist. I don't know how many generals are left as part of that 1,500 person team. If the other 1,000 people were also generalist and they're going to add 10,000 specialists, I have no idea. But the idea is that they're making it this transition to help improve their model with more accurate, detailed, domain-specific information, which, as you and I have talked before, models that are more domain-specific will likely have better results in those particular domains. So this is I guess, a way for these giant models, Grok being one of these giant models, to be able to have many of these domains built into the larger model, rather than necessarily splitting off into some of those small language models, which may have more in-depth domain knowledge that we kind of talked through over several episodes before.
So, Michael, does this mark the start of a industry-wide shift toward more specialized expertise, in your opinion?
I'm guessing the answer is going to be yes, for a couple different reasons. We get to a point where there's enough general knowledge out there, and I've seen some statistics on where these models are trained. A lot of it's off of Reddit, Wikipedia and whatnot. So they're pulling information from generalized sources anyway, although Wikipedia, you could argue, has some specialized information, but it's designed for a broader audience. So depending how detailed or in-depth these training models are going to be in each of the domains, yet to be seen. But I mean, I don't know if they're going to bring doctors in to help train the model for medical information, or if they're going to go to some other kind of source for that type of knowledge. But it's very interesting. I think we're going to see more of this because I think the generalized knowledge and what can be scraped from the internet and books and that kind of stuff, whether you download all the books and steal them yourself or you license them effectively, I've gone through that before too. The idea is that getting more specific information into these models will help them, and training them directly using specialists to help tutor them is going to be a differentiator than where other models will have to either follow suit with their own specialized training or find a way to do that in a different way. So,
yeah, definitely something for all of us, I think, to heed as we hone our AI skills. And, there's going to be a lot of generalists out there. Really, everyone at some point is going to be a generalist on AI, but it's so much better to be able to go deep in one or two areas. So that's something for all of us to take to heart. All right, well, let's go to the second article. This one is from the Wall Street Journal, and it's titled "Meta's Elite AI Unit Sparks Tension with Old Guard." So this article I found pretty interesting. It deals with the quintessential management problem, which is how do you recruit and retain top tier talent while keeping your existing employees satisfied and maintaining harmony. Certainly, when you bring a bunch of AI geniuses in, like Meta has done, for exorbitant amounts of money, they're gonna bring some egos with them, you might expect. So break all this down for us, if you would, Michael.
Sure, you're right. This is certainly is playing out on a public stage in terms of how this is working, but it also is amplifying the talent requirements and the shortage of talent in this very, very specific field. As we've talked about, and you mentioned just now, Meta has been paying huge sums to recruit some of these top tier talents away from other places like OpenAI and other labs. And if you were a loyal 10-year veteran at Meta who helped come up with the Llama model, and all of a sudden a new guy was hired in and had $100 million pay package, and no matter what your options or your stock that you'd be holding with Meta is worth right now, you have to look at it and say, am I getting that since I've been here that long and helped set the stage for all this? Right. Shouldn't I have a similar pay package? So this is a very, very tough question. And certainly Meta has gone out of their way to offer, I would say, ridiculous sums to hire folks away. I understand from a business standpoint, there may be some business validity to it all, but at the end of the day, these are individual people that are being hired away. Just like you have in sports, where you have one sports player and another sports player that come in, they get contracts for massive amounts of money to join the team, to participate, and to bring that team to a victory. We're seeing the kind of same thing play out here with Meta building their team. And the challenge you're going to have is, Michael Jordan was fantastic, but he couldn't do it on his own. He needed a team around him. So it really does speak to the fact that these other folks are critical to the success of Meta. Just because you have a star on your team doesn't mean that the rest of the folks shouldn't be paid to perform. So again, the other part of it too is this talked about some of the folks that were actually in Meta and lobbied for a raise, was given a grant worth millions of dollars and decided to leave anyway because they believed that the newcomers were still making multiples more than they were making. So again, difficult decision. If you talk to any rational person in any city, let's go to one of the mid-tier cities of the world, and you say, listen, I'm only going to pay you $3 million this year, every year, plus the $10 million stock grant that I have. And having someone pout about that and leave seems a little irrational to us. But in this field where they could potentially get $50 million a year somewhere else, maybe that's a bet that they want to take. So again, these are playing with dollars and sizes that we just generally don't see for salaries.
This is the same problem we often see in sports, right? Where you have too many star players making star player money, the chemistry breaks down, everyone's kind of looking out for themselves. And so you can understand how this could happen in a AI setting with all of these incredible AI geniuses together on one team. The article mentioned some of the numbers, which I lost track of, but I was shocked at this. Meta has hired in more than 50 people from other companies, including 21 from OpenAI, more than dozen from Google, and then a handful from XAI and Apple. So let's go to article number 3. So this one is from Futurism, which is a really great source. And Michael, I'm glad you found this. We have 2 articles from it. The first one here is titled "To Help Workers Losing Their Jobs to AI, OpenAI is launching a jobs platform run by AI." And the tagline, which is funny, says, "That should fix things." I love it. So OpenAI announced that it is launching this new AI-powered jobs platform that is going to use AI to match employers with potential candidates. And this will put them in competition, you could say, with LinkedIn and other, online tools that are helping people find jobs. So are OpenAI's intentions entirely benevolent here, Michael? What do you think?
Of course they are. Of course they are. I don't know how you would think that it wouldn't be. So again, this is the retraining dilemma that most organizations find themselves in. And I think there's a self-serving sort of activity here. If I'm running a platform that gets to see the top talents before anyone else does, the likelihood that post of their resume goes anywhere else is 0, right? They're going to hire those folks first before any other organization has the chance to be able to see that resume. So it is a little bit self-serving. Certainly the idea behind it is allowing, I'll say, so the rank and file, the folks who are not necessarily as technical, maybe it is some technical folks, but their goal is to certify 10 million people by 2030 to kind of create a certification program for this. That might help. It'll certainly show employers if they are able to get these kind of reputable certifications behind it to show that, yes, in fact, they do know how to leverage these tools in the ways that would provide value and good output. That perhaps that would give some specific value. And of course, they say AI will teach AI, so you can learn on their site about more about how to leverage these tools to provide the outcomes that organizations are looking for. So matching candidates to roles could be interesting. I'm not sure how they're planning on doing that specifically, but I imagine there's going to be, as you would think, a bunch of AI involved to be able to do that. So I think it's a good idea to really go hone this in specifically as a trading spot for folks. I think of it as the college sports, their portal, right? Where you're going in and you have the best players who decide they don't want to be on necessarily maybe not a great team anymore. And they put themselves out there, and good teams out there can then find those players and recruit them. I see this as a similar type of thing where OpenAI is going to open this Pandora's box of saying, hey, if it's just like the college sports portal, you may find a lot of the really good AI engineers decide to participate in this, and it becomes a free-for-all where these folks are being transferred between various organizations at the detriment of the organizations that are leaving. So, which then could cause the same kind of pay impact that we've seen at Meta. So we'll see how this works. I think it's a good idea in its most generic sense, which is let's train up a bunch of people on these new technologies to help them compete better in the job markets, because there's a gap and a real need for these kind of skills. I'm just concerned that it's going to be the cream that rises to the top, and the rest of the folks who are sloshing around the bottom are not necessarily going to get any look. So,
the article, I think, does a good job of talking about the double whammy out there. People are losing their jobs to AI, and then they struggle to find another job because AI is used to screen the resumes in a very impersonal way. And so I'm going to give OpenAI the benefit of the doubt here and say they are trying to do the right thing, acknowledge the disruption that AI is causing, and then try to turn it around and use it to help them. So we'll see how this turns out.
Yep.
All right. Next article. This one is from Cornell University. So they have published some research, and the title of it is AI Self-Preferencing in Algorithmic Hiring, Empirical Evidence and Insights. So their research has essentially shown that large language models favor their own outputs in hiring, which gives applicants who uses the same model a very clear advantage over equally qualified people. What were your thoughts on this?
So this goes back to the last article we just talked about in OpenAI. And when the AI evaluates resumes, and I thought this was a very interesting study, the way they performed it. Humans who have a specific skill set wrote their own resumes, and then AI, a specific AI model, rewrote that take the same skill sets, the same credentials, etc., and rewrote it in a format that it felt was appropriate. Same person, same resume. And as they submitted those resumes in, what they're finding is that the AI screening process tended to overwhelmingly favor the rewritten AI version versus the human written version before it even got to a person to actually look at. Yeah. So this becomes a challenge for a couple different reasons. We all know that AI is out there screening resumes. They had different kinds of algorithms screen resumes before, whether they're keywords or whatnot. Because in all of these job applications that companies put out there, there are a flood of resumes that go out there. And it makes sense to help the screening process to find the most appropriate candidate for those open roles, rather than having a person sort through all of the particular candidate resumes. The challenge you have, though, as we're seeing with this and the last article, is that AI itself may have bias that it's introducing that would disqualify the most qualified candidate simply because their resume doesn't fit through the filter. Yeah. And again, this is one of those things that organizations are likely, again, without this kind of study to determine it, would likely not see. They would not necessarily understand how those biases would be entered into this flow, because in fact they're using a model that they don't necessarily know how it works. Yeah. So it's very interesting, and I suspect it's gonna affect a lot of folks who are looking for a job right now and in the future, that they will choose then to use AI in one way or another to help reconstruct their resume to allow it to fit through the filter, maybe in a different way.
It's fascinating to me, and my brain goes to other use cases where large language models are being used to help companies make decisions or evaluate proposals or other applications. Think about that. I mean, what are the implications in those scenarios? Can people use the same models to write their applications or write their submissions or answer questions that are posed by an AI model? Is that going to give them an advantage if there is this self-preference bias? I mean, wow, it's just another example of how governance and guardrails and AI responsibility is so critical when companies start to use it in a decisioning capacity.
Yeah. So, and what I wondered too is an add-on to this, which hasn't necessarily been tested at the moment because this just came out, is I'm aware of companies using AI interviewers to conduct the first set of interviews before so you may have made it past the AI screen for your resume. The next step is to do a video interview with an AI to answer questions and get more information. So the question you have then is, well, do I send myself or do I send an avatar to answer on my behalf? Will the AI favor my avatar because it's getting answers that would be in a format that the AI would consider a higher score? So this becomes an AI. Have your AI call my AI, and we'll talk later. So
It's a very reasonable thing to expect based on Cornell. Thank you, Cornell University.
well, without this kind of studies, I mean, it's difficult for anyone else to understand how this would impact you because you just don't know. So I do appreciate the fact that they are going into this to really expose some of these kind of bias that maybe people wouldn't have known about.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, our fifth and final article today. This one also from Futurism. It's titled,
I love this article.
Yeah, I do too. Scientists created an entire social network where every user is a bot, and something wild happened. So this talks about a recent experiment by researchers at the University of Amsterdam. They simulated a social media platform that was entirely populated by AI chatbots. And they were trying to see if there was anything they could do to stop social media, in this case, from turning into the toxic environment that they often do become. So how did it go, Michael?
Well, the tagline on this one is also really great. It says, "We've got bad news." So yes, for anyone who has either seen or written or reviewed something on any of the social media, whether it's X, Facebook, Instagram, well, maybe not Instagram, but certainly Facebook and X, the users tend to be quite open and liberal with the way they express their internal thoughts. So the idea was, well, maybe there's different strategies that can be done to reduce the way that these are the negative echo chamber that goes on where, one user says something hateful and it pops up in another user's chat who's also said something hateful. So they could reinforce that hateful speech. And yet a third user comes in and now it becomes a cycle where they're only hearing their own hateful voices as part of it. So the idea was, okay, let's see if we built a fully bot run environment and see what happens there. And they tried 6 specific interventions to see how this would affect it. Like, what if we put news stories in chronologically? So instead of you seeing something by specific relevance to you, we'll send you a news story that's more topical, that is chronological. So instead of seeing something specifically about a political candidate over and over again, you'll start to see something about the fact that they planted trees at the local park. Then boosting diverse viewpoints. So instead of hearing again and again and again from the same folks who have a lot of followers, there'll be additional posts kind of interspersed in there that have maybe diverse viewpoints. So you hear some political speech from one side, some political speech from the other side. Someone who says that I want to plant trees in the park, another one who says I don't want to plant trees in the park. Things like hiding social statistics like followers and removing account bios to stop the platform from refeeding on itself, saying, well, this person has higher followers, therefore I should follow them because they have content that other people find is interesting, etc. And the algorithm right now is boosting things that way. If you're a popular a posting person with a large following, likely those posts will show up somewhere in your feed before some others who may have different views. So anyway, they tried all of these different scenarios, and what they found is none of them worked. Some of them had worked a little bit, but some of them made it even worse. They made the problem worse. So they what they found is that doing these studies, they were basically saying that social media as it is designed to create these kind of environments.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a very interesting and kind of sad way of looking at it, but that's kind of reality right now. And we've seen that in a bunch of different ways, especially when folks are behind a keyboard, anonymous. Obviously, these bots don't have any kind of specific feelings. So the way that they express themselves is very much unfiltered. Whereas in normal society, when you're talking to someone face to face, it's very likely that you would change your attitude, even if the same words were used by someone speaking them to you. So anyway, it's not a good sign, but we're not just, I'm glad they did this study to kind of find out what this would look like. Well, maybe we can find a way to make this a healthier place for discussion.
You can't fight the machine, so to speak. And I mean, the article did a great job of, showing that social media in and of itself, the way it's wired, the way the algorithms work, that an extreme inequality of attention is placed on a tiny minority of posts. Those are the ones that get the most visibility. And they're usually the ones that have the most misinformation, or they're the most polarized. They're the most shocking. I mean, that is the way social media is wired to work,
Right.
which is sad, but that is generally the case. So it doesn't matter if bots are doing it or humans are doing it. It trends in a bad direction, and not 100% of social media is bad and goes that way, but I would say a lot of it does, and this experiment certainly shows how that's possible. Well, that's all the time we have for this Pulse Check. Thank you for joining. Remember, we have a great podcast published every week with a guest as well, so be sure and check that out. And otherwise, we will see you back next time on the Pulse Check. Thanks for joining, and bye for now.